Welcome back. Um, the first 2 hours of the boat trip was probably the easiest because it was fairly early. It's daybreak, blue sky, calm water, still fairly cool. The sun had just come out, and the mood on the boat was pretty good, and everyone's excited to be leaving Vietnam. A lot of laughter, a lot of chatterings. And then, at this point, we can still see uh, landscape. So we're not that far away yet. So you can still see it, and the you know with that landscape that you can see, you can gauge if you're moving or not, and that was helpful because we can see that we are making stride. But I'd say about 2 hours into the trip, it become very apparent to all of us that we are in this for the long haul, and it's gonna be tough because by now it gotta be like 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and the sun is already scorching hot, and there's no shade. This is no shade, and everyone is already feeling the heat, and this is just the start. We barely, you know, a few hours into the trip, and already it become way too hot, and whatever happiness and good mood people was in turned into somber pretty quickly. Um, because of where we were sitting, to get to the bathroom, it would be fighting through the crowds, right? So it's I think all of us went to the bathroom once, as far as trying to use the bathroom that was at the end of the boat. It's not really a bathroom. At the end of the boat, there's a little cabin with a hole on the floor. So if you need to go to the bathroom, that's where you go. And it's quite a chore stepping through 100 people, fighting through the crowd to get there. So I think everybody did that once, and figured that's the end of that nonsense. Um, and it wasn't long before people getting sick on the boat. There's a lot of um, plastic buckets that being passed around for people to vomit into, uh, as well as people going to the bathroom in the bucket. And where we were sitting, the people that sit on the edge of the boat had to deal with the bucket keep handing to them, and they dump it to the side of the boat. So that was quite unpleasant to have to do. And it's not as if it's non-stop, but you figure, okay, there's 300 plus people on the boat. Certainly, every hour or so you see one of those buckets, and by by noon of that first day, the boat started to really stink. Okay, the smell of vomit is just inescapable. And no doubt the motion of the boat is starting to be much more noticeable because now we're farther from the shore. And luckily we had motion sickness pill that we discreetly takes. We didn't want other people to know that we have some motion sickness pill, because who knows what they would do. We had probably, I'm guessing, about a dozen pill each. So we took them every the first day. We took them every 4 hours. We had some prepare food packed in our bags. Is food are not provided on the boat, but the captain did pack a lot of water that he stored on top of the cabin. So there are rations of water to all of us. Ration. I think it was well understood among all of us that when the water bottle are being passed around continuously, we have to just sip. Okay, that was the instruction to just sip and pass it to the next person. There are no chugging of anything because we are in this together. We have to learn to share. We might be out in the ocean for 2 weeks. Okay, so that's enough water. Plus, if there's rain, we will try to do our best to capture the rain for fresh water to drink. That first night was rough because as bad as it was during the daytime, as far as the heat and the constant crashing of the wave, because where we were sitting, you had to understand, every few minutes we get a big splash of ocean water, and it didn't take long before, think about this, we're getting splashed with salt water and then the sun dried off. So by the end of the first day, we already have like a speck of salt everywhere, and my hair have all kind of little salt everywhere. It was just gonna get worse for the next few days as more salt water splash on us, and the sun dried off. The first night was the roughest because as bad as it was during the day, at night it's frightening. Okay, imagine being in the middle of the ocean. At night it's pitch black. You can see nothing, no sound. It was a cloudy night, so we couldn't see any stars or the moon, anything. And because of that, we can feel that maybe a storm is coming. And sure enough, in the middle of the night, we have thunder, lightning, pouring rain, big splashes of water. It was frightening. It was scary. I mean, it felt like we could capsize and be dead. I mean, I remember being so frightened the first night on that boat that I basically hunkered down like this and just shield myself from the splash of the ocean as well as the heavy rainfall. And there's nothing you can do. Nothing you can do but put your head down and just pray that it will be over quickly. A lot of people was crying. My sister was crying. She was praying. And after a while it passed, and I fell asleep, and the second day is basically a repeat of the first day. But luckily for us, for the rest of the trip, we did not have to deal with heavy storms, and it become very apparent to us now, as well as we heard from other people talking. The reason why we departed at the beginning of June was that June was the calmest month to travel in the water. It makes sense now why my dad planned this trip a year ahead, knowing full well that we're likely to depart in June. It would be nice, I guess, to know, so that we didn't have to go through almost a year of worrying when. I mean, for the whole year we didn't know when the depart date was, and every night was an anticipation of leaving. So in many ways I kind of wish he told us. I understand the whole secret thing, but at the same time, in hindsight, I'm just like, if we started the planning of this trip in June and knowing that we had to wait all the way to next June for the calmer ocean water, I didn't want to have to live with that kind of anticipation for almost the entire year. The second day was basically the same thing, and by now it's hot. The smell of the boat is unbearable. I can tell you, people was going to the bathroom right there in the bucket. If you have ever been inside a portable potty in a hot day and feel the stink of that portable potty. Imagine the boat smelling like that 24/7 on top of having the smell of vomit tossed in there. So it's unbearable. I can only be thankful that I'm facing, my back is against fresh air ocean, so I turn my head as often as I could to breathe in something that is not disgusting. I didn't mind a splash of the ocean water into my face every few minutes either, because that's cool me down. So I can't thank enough our lucky. I can't thank our lucky star enough that we get to sit where we sit, because I think I felt at the time we had the best seat in the house. The only thing that's is an annoyance was the constant splash of wave that hit us, but I would trade that. I wouldn't trade that with being anywhere else on the boat. And you know, it is well known that once we hit certain part of the ocean, there will be pirates. But the pirates tend to hit the smaller boat. We are one of the bigger one. You know, most boat people escape illegally in smaller boat with 20 to 30 to 50 people, maybe even 100, but that would be pushing it. The majority of the boat that you see that have 200, 300 people are the one that left legally. And the pirates, we did see two potential pirate boat that approach us, but they kind of check us out and they see that there's just way too many people on the boat, too many men, too many males on the boat, and too crowded. You know, most of these so-called pirate boats have maybe half a dozen to a dozen goons on them. So they're like, it's 8 of us and it's like 300 people over there, potentially 100 men. Let's not deal with this nonsense. It's not worth robbing these people. So we did see two that approached us, but they kind of left us alone. And on the third day, we did run across an oil rig. So we were kind of happy, you know. We kind of like, let's make a run for the oil rig, right? But as we get closer to it, the oil rig sent out a couple speedboats, and they told us not to come any closer or they will sink us. You know, the speedboat was pretty powerful. They can make big wave and we can fill the boat, you know, easily. It can be capsized if we did not listen to them. They instruct us to go away, and so we didn't have a choice. You know, our first hope of being saved didn't pan out, and so off we go. And from the third day onward, we did see a lot of, not a lot, but every few hours, you know, we see like a little sign of another boat far away. But you know, they usually disappear after a while. So whatever they were, we couldn't tell. We were never close enough to signal for help because the captain had flare guns and to use, you know. So that happened, and so the third night was calm. You know, it's by this point I was exhausted. I think the smell, the heat was so much that even if I was hungry, you know, I didn't feel like eating anything. You know, I was so tired, so exhausted that I'm just basically slumped into my little spot all day long, and just between waking up, passing out, sleeping, cooling off with the water. It was a blur. To be honest, I was in a daze, you know, and by this point I can definitely feel the the numbness, pain in my gum, as my dad has already mentioned it, and right away, we go to our lemon candy, and that alleviate the pain, the soreness, the numbness in the gum. So if that's what scurvy is, then I guess we experience a little bit of that. On the fourth day is when things get interesting. On the fourth day, we spotted once again a silhouette far away. And for the first time in our trip, the silhouette keep getting closer and closer. And so excitement start to build, right? Oh my goodness, and we get excited, and the captain for the first time decided that, hey, this is the first time we saw a silhouette of a boat, and it's actually getting closer to us. So let's make a run for it. So let's make a turn and trying to head toward it to close the gap. That's what we did. And sure enough, the boat kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And by the time, maybe 2 hours later, the boat was about probably at least this big. It's not the size of a cruise line, okay? It's not that big. It's definitely very big, but it's not, I had no idea how to gauge it. It's big enough that we would need a big ladder to board it. It's big enough. It's probably 10 times the size of our boat, at least. Okay, that's if I have to estimate. And then as we get within, I say, 100 yards of the boat, there's a loudspeaker talking. Are you boat people? I think that's the first time I laughed in 4 days. Are we boat people? What else can we be? Oh, the joy, the mood on the boat switched, right away. Oh, it was like we are being saved. A lot of people was crying, happy. I was happy, but I was exhausted. I can barely stand up. I'm after 4 days of being in the ocean, barely any food. I was dehydrated and definitely overheated. So I was excited, but it took me a long time to search for this, and I put a link below to this boat. Okay. It turns out that this boat that we run into is an Italian Roman Catholic sponsor ship of frigates, as they call it. There was a Vietnamese priest on board, and the mission of the boat was to go up and down the international water of Vietnam on the south side to try to fish and rescue boat people. For the past many years, I have been looking, trying to find information on this boat. This is not the only boat. So I have found other boats from other organizations that rescue boat people. But it took me a long time, because this was the only boat that had a Vietnamese priest or Monsignor. There's a term for it, but there was a priest on board, a Catholic priest on board that can speak Vietnamese and talk to us. So it took me a long time, but I finally found him. He's no longer alive, but I can't thank enough for this. It saved us. Without this boat, I'm not sure what would happen to us. I in all honesty, we could be dead. So the boat allow us to board them, and they have running water hoses for us to wash off. We were all filthy, stinking, dirty, smelly, disgusting, and they hose us down gave us food. They gave us a lot of rice to take with us. They gave us. I ate a can of tuna fish for the first time. And then the one thing that they allowed us to do was they told us we have a telegram machine on board that you can telegram home to your loved one that you have been rescued. Each family is allowed to write, like a 3 sentence message and telegram home. And my sister, I have no. This is the part of our training that I somehow don't remember. I don't remember my dad tell us what to do, and I don't think how my sister did it. But somehow, when it was her turn, she was able to send us a telegram home that say, "We've been rescued. We're on the boat, and we'll contact you once we make land." Something like that. That was the message. And the priest told us that even though we are rescued, in many ways it's not over yet, because they are not allowed to go into Indonesian water or Malaysian water. They can only go in the international water. At this point, the priest told us that Malaysia has been overcrowded with refugee. Something like 200,000 refugee has came to Malaysia at this point from 1975 to 1979, and they are overcrowded with refugee, and that's not a good place to go. I also put a link below to 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes did a documentary on boat people in June of 1979. It's the same time, 3 weeks or so after we left. So if we went to Malaysia, we could have been part of that documentary. That's how crazy life was. Coincidence, it's a great documentary. It's about 20 minutes. If you have more interest in boat people, watch it. The documentary was done by Ed Bradley, one of my favorite 60 Minutes correspondent ever. I love Ed Bradley. One of the coolest cat. I watched him for years and years and years, if not decades. And when he passed away, I was saddened. He's one of my favorite news correspondent out there ever. And the captain and the priest told us that the best location for us to go would be to Indonesia. It's a little bit farther away, but more refugee are heading that way, or more refugee that they fish out have been diverted that way, because Indonesia is still fairly fresh as far as refugee. And they will get us there, but only as far as the international water is allowed, and then we had to go the rest of the way. So that night, they head that way, and they tow our boat. So like I said, this ship is big, but it's not that big, so they were able to tow our boat behind it. And the next day, on the 5th day, we were on that boat for at least a day. And on the 5th day, at the end of the 5th day, they told us, okay, we went as far as we could, and they gave us direction, a working compass, and say that if you head this direction in about a day and a half, they gave us more fresh water, more rice, more gasoline for the engine. And they told the captain, if you head this direction, stay on this coordinate, in about a day and a half you should hit land. That would be Indonesia. Okay, and that's the best we can do for you. Best of luck, stay safe. And we had to reboard our boat. Okay, so now all the people that was stuck below for 4 days before, they are They wouldn't have none of that. They told everyone, hey, we were stuck down below into that hellhole for 4 days. There is no way in hell we are going down there. So we and a bunch of other people was forced to go down to the hole. It's our turn to suffer. And I can tell you, that was the worst moment, the worst period of the boat ride. Is great as knowing that we are near the end. The next day and a half below was the most disgusting, foul, smelling, unbreathable. It was just horrendous. It was, there's no air. The below, it's just the opening and the stench, the smell, I can't even explain how horrific and smelly and stinky and filthy it can be. It's like the previous 4 days, it was smelling like living inside a portable potty. Now we literally feel like we are standing in the toilet. Okay, it's just horrific. And I just pray that we find land soon, because every waking minute was just horrendous. It's I can't even describe how horrible it was. So about a day plus later, we can hear after a day or so traveling, we can hear excitement above us. Okay, at this point, everyone below was just like, forget this shit. Okay, we're done, cooped down here. We forced our way up. Sure enough, you can see in the far distant landscape, and then we get really excited, and then the captain was trying to calm everyone down, like, listen, we're too top heavy, we can capsize the boat. We are half a day away from making landfall, so calm the hell down and trying to not capsize the boat, because the 80 people below was pushing their way up, and it was just crazy. It was one of the more, I wouldn't say violent, but more ruckus on the boat than ever, because the people below just like, the hell with this, we can't be below. It's kind of scary, because the captain was yelling at all of us for like, calm down, because we need to not capsize the boat. Eventually, we all managed to squeeze our way into a spot so that we can all be above the hellhole. As tight as it was and as hot as it was a heck of a lot more breathable than staying below. And by the end of the 7th day, we are now close to land. Before nightfall, we are close to landfall. It's like probably like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. For those who does not know Indonesia, it's a bunch of little islands where what we saw in front of us was 2 or 3 small islands, but we could not see any sign of civilization. Okay, we just see small island with a lot of palm trees and trees. And so the captain told us, I think we've been going on long enough. Let's make land. Let's head for one of those islands and get off, because we don't know where civilization is, and the hell with it. We're gonna go. So the captain get there, and I couldn't wait to jump in the water. I was pretty good swimmers, so and the boat get close enough where I jump off the boat and swim to shore with my bags and breathe the fresh air and just thank the Lord, thank God, that we made it. And it was one of the biggest most memorable moment of my life is to make land and to just sit there and just breathe and to just have a big weight off my shoulder, and it's a wonderful moment. It's an unforgettable moment to know that we made it. It's the first time that I can say to myself, we made it. It's just, I wasn't. A lot of people was crying, and all that stuff. I was not crying. I was just relieved that we made it, that we survived, and we are lucky. I can tell you, the majority of the Vietnamese that I know, well, I won't say the majority. Some have it easier, some have it harder. We all have our stories. Okay, my story is not alone. Something like 800,000 Vietnamese people have left Vietnam eventually. Something big. There's a lot of numbers thrown around, but at this point, by 1979, something like 300,000 have left. Many have died in the ocean. Many fail. So we just blessed and feel lucky that we survived the trip. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And for now, I will end this video and we'll continue next time of the island. Thanks for watching.